When I reached into my purse to pay for a stranger's groceries, I wasn't trying to make a statement. I was trying to stop shaking. Moments earlier, the woman in front of me had whispered, "They took everything after my husband died." Those words cut deeper than she knew. Because once someone had told me the same thing right before they took everything from me, too. So, I handed over the $150, my heart pounding, and gave her the red scarf around my neck. She thanked me with eyes that looked too familiar, eyes that had once judged me from across a dinner table. My name is Alara Vance, and I had no idea who she really was. The email came just as I finished a 12-hour shift. My hands still smelling faintly of antiseptic. The subject line froze me where I stood. Formal dinner, attendance required. No greeting, no RSVP, no warmth, just a command. Marcus appeared behind me before I could even process it. He read the line over my shoulder and sighed like a man about to watch a slow-motion car crash. "Don't be late," he said quietly. "She'll take it as an insult. And don't mention the hospital. My mother thinks charity is what people cling to when they've failed at everything else." I laughed, the kind of brittle laugh people use to cover the sting. "So, what should I say, that I heal people for profit?" He didn't answer. Instead, he handed me a printed list. What to wear, what time to arrive, what not to talk about. There was even a note that said, "No stories about your family." I folded the paper and slipped it into my purse, like evidence of something I already knew. I was about to walk into a room where kindness didn't count. That night, I pulled a navy dress from the back of my closet and wrapped a red wool scarf around my neck, the one I'd knitted last winter. It wasn't elegant, but it was mine. Before leaving, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Ordinary face, ordinary life. "Be yourself," I whispered. "Even if they decide that's not enough." And for the first time, I wondered if this invitation wasn't a dinner at all, but a test I hadn't agreed to take. I left Harborview at 4:15, the sky already fading into that pale gray that swallows Maine before night. Snow came in soft sheets across the highway, each mile colder than the last. Marcus's voice kept repeating in my head. "If you're late, she'll never forget it." By the time I reached the outskirts of Portland, I realized I'd forgotten a gift bag for the wine. There was a Walmart off the next exit. I told myself it would take 5 minutes. Inside the store buzzed with that dull hum of fluorescent light and tired people. I was halfway to the checkout when I saw her. An older woman stood at the register, her hands trembling as she counted coins. Her basket held a few frozen dinners, a pack of diapers, milk, and an inhaler. The card machine beeped twice, then refused her payment. I thought I'd keep walking. I really did. But when she bent to pick up the coins that had rolled across the floor, something inside me cracked. A photo had slipped from her wallet. A younger woman in a nurse's uniform smiling softly. For a second, I could have sworn I was looking at myself. I stepped forward. "Let me cover it," I said quietly. The cashier blinked. "It's $150, ma'am." I nodded. People shouldn't have to choose between medicine and dinner. The woman's eyes glistened. Without thinking, I unwound the red scarf from my neck and placed it over her shoulders. "It's cold out there. You need it more than I do." Her hand brushed mine, frail and warm. People don't do that anymore. Maybe they should. When I pushed the cart toward the door, the wind cut sharp against my throat. The parking lot was buried in white, the world silent, except for the hum of idling cars. My phone flashed 5:57 p.m. I was officially late. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel wrong. I felt light, as if I'd rescued something I didn't even know I'd lost. The iron gates of the Stratford estate swung open at precisely 6:17. Marcus stood on the steps, his breath visible in the cold, his expression thunderous. 17 minutes late, Alara. She'll never let it go. I started to explain, but he cut me off. You always choose everyone else over us. Kindness won't save you this time. The words stung more than the wind. Inside the house was an ice palace. White walls, marble floors, chandeliers blazing like judgment. A long dining table stretched the length of the room. Dozens of eyes turned as we entered, curiosity thinly veiled behind polite smiles. At the far end sat Eleonora Stratford. Her posture was regal. Her face unreadable, her silver hair pinned high. When she turned toward me, I forgot how to breathe. Draped over her shoulders was my red scarf. For a heartbeat, the world tilted. The scarf I'd given away not an hour earlier now rested on the woman whose approval Marcus feared most. He didn't notice. "Mother, this is Alara." She smiled faintly. "Welcome, Miss Vance. You're right on time." "Almost." I forced a laugh. My eyes locked on that familiar thread of red wool. It couldn't be. Not unless. Eleonora's gaze held mine, calm, knowing. I'm blinking. The corners of her mouth curved slightly, and she spoke in a tone so soft the room seemed to quiet around her. Such a kind gesture deserves conversation. The sound of her voice chilled me more than the snow ever could. If heaven had a private dining room, it would look exactly like this one. Light shimmered from crystal chandeliers onto a table long enough to seat a jury. The silverware was so polished, I could see my reflection in the blade of a knife. To my left sat a state senator, to my right, a pharmaceutical heir who bragged about profits between bites of lamb. At the head of the table was Eleonora Stratford, composed, still, her face unreadable. She watched me as if she already knew my answers before asking the questions. "So, Ms. Vance," she began softly. "Marcus says you work in healthcare." I nodded. "Yes, at Harborview Community Hospital." A woman across from me raised an eyebrow. "Community hospital. I thought those were for charity cases." Laughter rippled down the table, light, but cutting. Eleonora didn't join in. Her eyes stayed on me, calm and piercing. "Tell me," she said. "What do you like most about helping people who can't help themselves?" I held her gaze. "Sometimes they help me remember who I am." Silence fell like frost. Then Marcus spoke too quickly, his voice thin. "Alara's being modest. She's practically management now. Hardly does the hands-on work anymore." Eleonora tilted her head. How convenient, to lead compassion without touching it. Her tone burned worse than the laughter. I answered quietly, steady. Compassion isn't less real just because it's messy. No one spoke after that. Only the scrape of silver on porcelain filled the air. That was when I realized this wasn't dinner. It was a moral trial. Eleonora the judge, Marcus the trembling witness, and me, the defendant trying not to lose herself. When the server poured more wine, Eleonora spoke again, almost absently. "Charity looks beautiful, until it costs you something." Her words cut straight through me. Somehow, she knew. Dinner ended. She rose gracefully. "Ms. Vance, would you join me in the library?" Marcus's hand brushed mine beneath the table, a silent plea not to go, but I stood anyway. The Stratford Library felt like a cathedral built for silence. Shelves climbed toward the ceiling, walls lined with portraits staring down in judgment. Eleonora poured tea, her movements measured, precise. Behind her, a framed photograph caught my eye. Her younger self in a nurse's uniform, standing beside her husband in front of a sign that read, Stratford Hope Center. The woman in that photo was the same face I'd seen in the wallet at Walmart. "You stopped somewhere before dinner, didn't you?" she said evenly. I hesitated. A store, a woman, groceries. My throat tightened. Yes. She couldn't pay. I helped her. "How much?" $150, and you gave her your scarf." The room tilted slightly. She didn't ask. She recited. "Why?" I whispered. "Because people reveal themselves most clearly when they think no one important is watching." I met her gaze. Do you believe in tests? Not the kind where one person hides behind another's hunger. Her expression softened for the first time. Good. She turned toward a glass cabinet and lifted another photo. Her husband Arthur. He used to say kindness is the only investment that never loses value. I stopped believing that. Maybe you gave it to the wrong people, I said. For a brief second, something human flickered across her face. Then it was gone. You should go. Marcus will take you home. I started to leave, but her voice followed me. Thank you for being late. Outside, the butler waited by the door. As I passed, he murmured without looking up. You reminded her of who she was. The wind hit my face like glass as I stepped into the snow. I realized she knew everything, and this test was far from over. 3 days after the dinner, Maine was locked in ice. In the hospital break room, I scrolled absently through my phone until the headlines stopped me cold. Eleonora Stratford spotted at Walmart. Billionaire buys groceries herself. Below it was a blurry photo. A woman in a gray coat, red scarf, her face half turned away. My stomach twisted. No one noticed the figure beside her, me. Co-workers laughed. Elara, can you imagine the richest woman in Portland at Walmart? Guess even billionaires need discounts. I forced a smile, my pulse climbing. They had no idea. That afternoon, Marcus called. Did you see it? Mom's furious. Reporters think she staged it for publicity. She's trying to find who was next to her. Maybe she just. No, you don't understand. She hates exposure. If she finds out you were there. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. He was terrified of what his mother might see in me. When my shift ended, the front desk clerk handed me an envelope. Heavy paper, familiar handwriting. You saw me when I wanted to be invisible. Let's finish the conversation we started. Yes. I read it twice, heart pounding. It wasn't a question anymore. She was the woman in Walmart. Anger burned through the fear. Why test me? Because I wasn't one of them. Because kindness was a weakness in her world. I slipped the letter into my coat pocket, whispering into the empty hallway. Fine, Mrs. Stratford. Let's finish it. Snow whipped sideways outside. This time, I didn't run from the cold. The next night, I returned to the Stratford estate. The butler led me to the parlor. Marcus was nowhere in sight. Eleonora sat by the fire, eyes softer than I remembered. You came, she said. You asked me to. Most people don't. They prefer their own version of truth. Was that really you at Walmart? Yes. Why? Because I needed to remember what decency looked like. I used to believe in it. She drew out a photo of her younger self in a nurse's uniform beside her husband. We built a free clinic once. The board shut it down for profit. He died that day. I stopped believing in hearts. So you tested me, to see if people like you still existed. And what did you find? That my son is marrying a woman braver than he'll ever be. She handed me a check for Harborview. Let kindness breathe again, I pushed it back. You can't buy what you've already lost. Good, she said softly. Then I know the money is safe with you. She lifted the red scarf from the sofa and placed it on my shoulders. Keep it. Warmth only matters when it's shared. The firelight flickered across her face. Ms. Vance, you failed my son's test of punctuality, but you passed mine. For the first time, her voice carried something real, belief. The scarf was warm, but what she returned to me was faith. A week later, I returned to the Stratford estate. This time, the dinner was small, just the three of us. The fire glowed behind the glass, filling the room with cedar and silence. The same portrait stared down from the walls, but something in the air had changed. No tension, only the quiet sense that something long buried was about to be unearthed. Eleonora began first, her tone steady. Marcus, do you know why I did it? He gripped his wine glass. Because you don't trust anyone, not even me. Wrong, she said. Because I wanted to see which of us still believed in something. The fire cracked. I sat perfectly still, feeling both invisible and exposed. You told me Alara was late, undisciplined, but you didn't mention she was late because she stopped to help someone. You thought I wanted perfect. I only wanted decent. Marcus's shoulders shook. His voice broke. I've spent my whole life trying to make you proud, and you forgot that being right isn't the same as being good. Her gaze softened. No longer the cold steel I'd come to expect. She turned to me. He told you not to talk about charity. You did anyway. That's how I knew. Knew what? That you'd rather be kind than be accepted. The words lodged deep in my chest. She reached for the red scarf resting on the back of her chair. Kindness among the ambitious is rare as warmth in winter. Don't let the world take it from you. Marcus lowered his head, tears streaking his face. I just wanted to make you proud. You did, she said gently. Tonight. She removed the scarf and placed it in my hands. Keep it. It belongs to the only person who remembered what warmth feels like. The fire flared bright, bathing us all in gold. Marcus squeezed my hand, whispering, I don't deserve you. Then earn it, I said softly. Be better, not richer. When I stepped outside, snow drifted down in slow, peaceful flakes. For the first time, it didn't feel cold at all. A month later, the world finally caught up to what had happened behind those mansion doors. The Portland Press Herald headline stretched across the front page. The Eleanora Trust returns, $5 million for public health. Beneath it, the logo gleamed, a red scarf folded into the shape of a heart. I read the story from my small office at Harborview. While the nurses around me cheered, Alara, look at this. Mrs. Stratford is funding the public hospitals again. I smiled, quiet and full. Eleanora hadn't just made peace with her past. She'd done something about it. That afternoon, Marcus appeared at my door. No suit, no tie, just him, simpler, lighter. He looked around the busy ward, watching a nurse cradle a newborn as an orderly laughed nearby. I wanted to say I'm sorry, he said. You showed me something my mother spent her whole life trying to relearn. And what's that? You can't earn love by impressing people. You earn it by doing what's right when no one's watching. He exhaled, as if letting go of something heavy. Mom wants you to take over as director of the Eleanora Trust. I shook my head. I'll help, but from here. Harborview is where I belong. He smiled faintly. She said you'd say that. As he turned to leave, he paused. She also said to give you this. He handed me a small envelope. Inside was the crumpled Walmart receipt, edges, yellowed, handwriting, and ink that had bled slightly into the paper. Proof that kindness can outlive shame. I ran my thumb over the faded numbers, the total, $150. A price tag for compassion that had rewritten lives. The world could change its laws, its headlines, its heroes. But somewhere in that worn slip of paper was the only truth that ever mattered. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness outlives everything else. 3 years later, I was still at Harborview. The same white corridors, the same smell of antiseptic and coffee, but now my name sat on the door of the new Community Health Fund, Harbor Hope. On the wall behind my desk hung certificates and photos of patients whose lives we'd saved, but my eyes always drifted to the red scarf. It was framed beside a black and white portrait of Eleanora Stratford. The threads had dulled with time, yet every time sunlight hit the glass, it glowed faintly, as if still holding warmth. Eleanora had passed peacefully the year before. Her letter arrived 2 days later, written in that same sharp, graceful script. Thank you for reminding me what warmth feels like. Yes. I folded it carefully and placed it beneath the frame. Outside the window, snow was falling again, soft and slow, the same kind that used to blanket the roads to Portland. A soft knock broke my thoughts. A young woman stood at the door, clutching a crumpled prescription slip, eyes red from crying. "They said my card didn't go through," she whispered. "I'll come back next week." I walked around the counter, my coat still hanging open from the cold. "It's all right," I said gently. "We'll take care of it." Her eyes widened. "People don't do that anymore." "Maybe they should." I watched her leave with medicine in hand, her steps lighter than when she'd come in. When the door closed, I turned back to my office. The scarf caught the light again, red against the pale winter wall, glowing like a heartbeat. For a long time, I stood there, feeling the quiet settle around me. The hospital hummed with the noise of ordinary kindness, the kind that never made headlines, the kind Eleonora had once forgotten existed. I touched the edge of the frame and whispered to no one in particular. Kindness only matters when it's quiet. The snow outside kept falling, endless and calm. Somewhere beyond the glass, I imagined Eleonora smiling, her warmth alive in every unseen act, in every small choice to care. And as I turned back to work, I knew the circle was complete. What began as a single quiet gesture at a Walmart checkout had become something far greater, proof that even the softest kind of goodness can outlive us all.